I'm Sunny Slaughter, and I'm a criminal consultant and law enforcement instructor with the Department of Homeland Security. I specialize in crimes against persons, and I've trained law enforcement on domestic violence just across the country, but I'm also a survivor, so this is all personal.
All right. And everyone that's listening, if you know anybody that's in this situation, or if you're in this situation, make sure you stay locked into this show. Call your friends, text them, Facebook them, tweet them. Make sure they're listening at the 6:30 hour. 205-941-1011. If you got any questions, we have the experts in the house. People have been through it. They have different things that they're going to be able to share with us.
Well, they need to be aware that there are domestic violence laws on the book. And, we used to call them a fight uh, as we were growing up as kids. We just said people are having a fight. But actually, domestic violence is a crime. And each state has their own laws. Each city may have some different things that they're doing. But domestic violence is a crime. There's some federal laws that also involve domestic violence. And as far as guns and individuals involved in domestic violence, people can file for what we call a PFA, and that's a protection from abuse order. And other people can get restraining orders. And I'll talk a little bit later about how that involves children and what that looks like.
Wow.
Alabama. But your station reaches national attention. So one of the things that I want to say, the Violence Policy Center, based in Washington, D.C., does an annual report that comes out in September of every single year, right before the month of October, which is October is recognized as National Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And in that report, it always talks about the number of homicides that are committed with a gun. And the statistical data reads somewhere around 500 plus women, and particularly women of color, who are murdered with a gun. And gun violence and domestic violence almost go hand in hand. And as it relates to women, men, and children, the number of children who witness violence, the number has been classified somewhere around 10 million, but it only takes one.
Right.
One woman, one man, one child for it to be our problem. And the young lady that was murdered, she was pregnant. I'm sure it was a volatile situation.
Right.
And in law enforcement, when I'm training, we have something that we call lethality indicators.
Okay.
And lethality indicators are things that continue to happen. And domestic violence is either a one-time incident, or it's a continuous incident that's either short or long-term. It can be verbal,
Right.
emotional, and psychological. Unfortunately, the laws on the books do not include emotional abuse, but we have in Jefferson County domestic violence courts, and those are specialized courts. They have them in other states across the country where the judges are actually trained for domestic violence situations. And we have Judge Agnes Chappelle here that's in Jefferson County, in Birmingham, that does municipal court, and then we have Judge Katrina Ross that handles those for district court. And the YWCA and other advocates, we have court advocates that are in there. Tahira and I have both worked very closely with the YWCA, and others with Pathways with Maria Dickens, who have shelters and services for victims of domestic violence.
Wow.
Abused when you are isolated from family, friends, at work. Even though you can leave the home, doesn't mean that you are leaving and feeling safe and that you're feeling comfortable when you're out. When children are used, and that's one of the biggest things.
Yes.
And let me really talk about children being used in domestic violence situations. We have talked about leaving and when it's safe to leave, because there is hope and you can leave, but leaving is also one of the most dangerous times that you that there is. And you really should have a plan. Unless it's an emergency situation, you really should have a plan. Here in the state of Alabama, we have what we call a 12-hour hold, and if law enforcement is called out to the scene, they are trained. Birmingham Police Department, I've also done some of that training for them. They are trained to recognize signs of domestic violence and an individual, be it the man or woman, is incarcerated and put on a 12-hour hold, which gives the victim, whomever the victim is, an opportunity to gather some things and leave that particular situation. And but you can't just walk away when you have kids. You need to obtain a counsel, the YWCA in domestic violence courts, and I also work in Brighton courts. So we have other individuals who are trained as well, but that's a sticky situation with the children, because if the children haven't been direct victims, it does not mean that you can just take the children away from the other parent.
Right.
You have to do that legally. There has to be some things set in place by a judge, and the judge will make that determination.
Courthouse in 1986. And so dealing with those 2 years as a hostage, I was in the same situation where people are seeing it as none of my business. They see it as strange, the situation that I was in. You know, so I would be glad to tell more in detail as we go along in the show. But
Right.
a lot of people now, they fall in love, and but my situation wasn't like that. I did not know this guy, and so even during the trial, I still didn't get to know who he really was.
Wow. And y'all, make sure y'all stay locked in. 205-941-1011. At the bottom of the hour, we're going to be talking a lot more about that. Now, Sonny.
Yes.
What's going on, girl?
You didn't struggle with that one, did you?
Nah, this
Not this time.
Not this time.
The domestic violence team at the YW was very creative with the poster that has those numbers on there, that's posted in women's restrooms, and the card will actually have something about a fashion show or a seamstress on it with a domestic violence number. But the poster where they pull that tag or that card from has information about domestic violence. Or you or someone else you know has experienced domestic violence, call us at this number.
Right.
So it protects if the husband was to go through the wife's purse at night, and we've actually seen and heard some incidents where they're checked when they come home
Right.
for any material. They see that card and they're not suspicious that she's trying to reach out for help.
Right.
So it's just a very creative way to give them the number and the resources that they need without making that situation worse before they can reach out for help.
And Dr.
Lock it in, yeah. It's the Joe Lockett Show. Lock it in, yeah. It's the Joe Lockett Show. Lock it in. Are you ready to be entertained, educated? A little stimulation for your brain. Lock it in. Are you ready to learn? Are you ready to laugh? Are you ready to love? Then lock it in, yeah. It's the Joe Lockett Show. Lock it in, yeah.